Hello everyone, this is the sewer swipe level designed by Carrot Cowan. As before, the player must search through the rubble and crouch or jump over the log to gain scrap. Once the player has jumped over the log, they then search through the rubble for the scrap on the outside. Because my level is the first one, it is just the practice, so the player can get used to jumping, moving, using the gravel, and crouching. Once the player is through searching through the rubble, they use the crate to get onto the terrain, and then to get onto the scaffolding. This interaction is good practice for the player, because moving the crate in front of an object and then jumping on top or over it is used quite a bit in my level. Once the player gets onto the scaffolding, they then use the transition system on the ladder to get to the top. Once on top, they jump into the tunnel and crouch through the hole in the gate. Once inside the sewer, the player goes to this room and finds a brick to smash through the pipes to gain entry to the hidden storage room. From there, they collect a piece of scrap and then leave the room. After that, they search for the crate that will gain them entry to jump over the gate here and collect the collectible. Once they jump over the gate, they've entered Danger Room 1, where they have to jump from platform to platform. I've added a particle water effect in each room. The speed of the particles increase based on how much damage the water does in that room. This is more of an intimidation factor to make the player kind of stop and analyze what is in the room instead of just jumping from platform to platform. Once the player makes it to Danger Room 3, both Danger Room 1 and Danger Room 2 are merged into one, essentially. The player must jump from platform to platform and then grab the crate and use it to bridge themselves to the others on the second half of the room. The platforms have been widened ever so slightly to make the jumps easier if the player were to die and lose the crate. Once the player jumps over the gate, they enter the second hallway, and once those obstacles are cleared, they complete the objective, and then objective list is cleared. They then use the brick to smash into the second hidden room and collect the scrap, and then search for the CD player under the rubble. Once the CD player is collected, the player must use the crate that was over it to jump over the barricade. Once over the barricade, the player must take the staircase to the building, where the player searches for cash. I've made the rooms that do not have cash in them not accessible because I didn't want the player to be searching rooms without cash and wasting their time. Once the player is done searching for cash, they go to the second floor where they collect the brick and bring it to the window, and then launch it and shatter the window. On the other side of the window is the second CD player and the next part of the project.
Hi, my name is Christian Strand, and this is my level Pop. The player's objective is to locate a harmonica inside the mall. Approaching the mall, they will find that the power is out and the door cannot open. They will need to locate the power relay inside the parking garage. They can reach it by moving some debris out of their way. Once they enter the room, they can turn the power relay back on. They will find the lights turn on, but so does the electrified water out front. They can use the pallets floating on the water to make it to safety. And use the door should the worst happen. Returning to the entry, they'll find that the door is now open, and they can find the music store inside. Once inside, the player can search the cash register. Searching, however, activates the building's alarm, and they must turn it off with the power box in the back. Then locate the inventory for the harmonica, which states that it's upstairs in the manager's office. The stairs, however, have fallen into disrepair, and you can use the plank to bridge the gap. Once inside the manager's office, they'll find the safe, but it doesn't open yet. Searching the desk will reveal that they need the two guitars, the electric and the acoustic. The electric guitar can be seen across the way above the cash register. And the acoustic is on the back wall downstairs. Secret method I included in the game. Once they get the acoustic guitar, now the safe will open. And they can retrieve the harmonica. Attempting to go out the front causes the building security to activate, lowering the shutter, and they will now stack the amps to reach the exit.
first level, the secret laboratory. The player starts off with an objective to find a way to get into the secret lab, finding a card. As the player continues to adventure on and discover what lurks around every corner, the player will eventually see and find a yellow key card, which is what the player just picked up now. So continue on, crouching underneath this little platform and going through this hole. The player finds the door that will lead them ultimately downwards. This will lead them to a rocky path underneath the earth. Player will find a little interactive area with boxes and some small setups. Dropping down from the ledge, a player will find a ladder which they will then climb, and it will give them access to the next part of the game. Continuing on, the player will find the entrance to the secret lab, as well as a cash pickup. Opening door, the player will find a yellow chest, which they will then interact with. And pick up a blue energy. Now, what they just did there with the battery was an interaction that when you slide the battery over, this will activate the platform and allow the player to move on through the adventure. Some doors throughout the level aren't able to be opened up, is because the player does not have access to them. Crouching underneath this door and shoving some of these boxes out of the way, the player will find a new room with some new scenery. It will provide for an eye catcher, prompt the player to explore a little bit throughout the room. Here, the player will find a large amount of rubble that is blocking their path. If the player jumps out, they'll then see a bomb that is located right in front of the rubble. When the player tries to interact with the ladder, which they will have to go on the right side to interact with, this will bring them up into a control room, which will detonate the bomb down underneath, destroying the rubble, as well as the bomb itself. Once the player drops down, they will then have access to a ventilation system. If the player continues on this path, they will find themselves falling out of the ventilation system into a room where a battery pickup awaits them. A laser tunnel is now blocking their way. If the player is careful enough, they'll be able to make it through the laser grid as well as the platforms. If the player is careful enough, they will make it through just fine. Using the boxes, the player will then shatter this glass, which will give them access to the gas chamber. Watching out as the player is losing health every second, they have to think quick and climb these platforms to get a console that is out of reach. Being careful as the footing is very tricky. Once the player interacts with the console, a door will open up that will continue on to the next path. A laser grid once again appears, this time with moving platforms, further spaced platforms, to cause a little bit more of a challenge. The player will have to be careful as their footing might cause them their death. Getting to the ladder will give them access to the next hallway. Here the player will have to duck and jump over pipes to get to the next interaction area. player will be able to find a battery interaction just underneath this wall, if they're good enough at finding things that are hidden. This will give them access to the next area that is just past here. Crouching underneath the wall, moving on, the player will find a ladder that was not there before. The player climbs up it, they'll find another battery interaction. This time they have to disconnect it. Disconnecting the battery will cause the laser grid to turn off, allowing the player to continue on their story. Once the player climbs this ladder, they will find themselves in a hallway. As they continue on, the doors will open automatically, and revealing the last item in my level that the Basts are looking for to grant the Scrapper access to the Bastion. Continuing past, the player will have to find an exit. Here they will find a sewer system that will ultimately drop down the backside of my level.
This level is designed by I. Beck Larson, and it takes place in an abandoned aquarium. As the player enters the aquarium, they are notified that they must find several objects, including a badge, key code, and must activate a powered bridge to get into the main building, which is where their pump core is at. Within the first building, the player finds a collectible. As he goes on into the second building, he finds the first item he's really looking for. That's the badge. The player continues along and can find a map of the entire area. He can quickly scan over it and see where he needs to go. The player quickly jumps over fallen light poles and continues to the bathroom. Inside the bathroom is the next item. That's the key code to the main door. Now all the player has to do is activate the power. The player can search around and find all the collectibles. I didn't spend a whole lot of time doing this just to save time, because there is 10 collectibles total. But as the player continues along, he spots another collectible and quickly runs over there and grabs it, and then looks in the next room and can see that that door is closed, so he continues on. The player can see in the room that he needs to get in there, so he quickly moves the boxes that are barricading the door. As the player enters the room, he activates this toggle switch, which activates the powered bridge. The player quickly runs as he can hear the powered bridge sliding its way across and connecting with the main dock. Now with all the items in his inventory, he can open up the main door to the main building and find what he came for. That's the pump core. The player can maneuver all these boxes and get over the fallen debris. And this building contains a lot of collectibles if the player wants to spend a lot of time looking for all of them. Around the next corner is a fish tank that has been busted. The player must use a box to climb over it. Fortunately, I put a little far there and I had to quickly jump through it, and it severely damaged me. The player then must reuse the box to get over the next set of debris. This is the last large set of debris. Around the next corner is the puzzle hint. The player will need this so that they know which button to press to receive the pump core. The player must be careful and not choose the wrong one. Using the key code shiny, he picks the shiny one and retrieves the pump core. If the wrong one was chosen, a large brick would fall on them. The player must now escape the main building and get to their boat. Around the bin is another set of debris that's fallen with some boxes that have been blocked in it. And the player can leave the main building. As the player exits, he gets through the gate that was blocking the main entrance and can enter the boat and finally end the game.